It's great to see everybody here. We have a great day. The theme of the day, so people should know, it goes like this. It's going to be about happiness. It's going to be about health. And by tonight, it's going to be about hope. So get ready. It's going to be a long one, but we need everyone all in. And Michael Brandwine, a friend of mine, many of you might know him. He's a really nationally renowned youth development staff trainer. He reminds us whenever and wherever possible to greet people using their first names, especially young people, kids. Makes everyone feel seen, heard, welcomed, and included. So to practice that good practice, I'm going to ask you, not yet, but in a moment, I'm going to say good morning, and I'm going to ask you to respond, good morning, Aaron. So let's give it a try. Good morning, summer learning community. Good morning, Aaron. See, it really works. It really works. So now, since you came to a conference to get to know others, I'm going to ask you to quickly turn to somebody near you, behind you, maybe someone you don't know. Tell them your name, ask them their name, shake their hand, introduce them, and say thank you for coming. Now, you yourselves feel seen, heard, welcomed, and included. But let me just say this. What you just did, you might say a very simple act, not a big deal. 4 years ago, this conference took place in this room, in the middle and height of COVID. Every other national education conference in the country was canceled. Everything was put on Zoom, went remote. But there was such an urgency and a huge investment in summer programs that everyone was getting money, everyone was focused on this, that our team said, and our board, we have to meet in person. Now, it was COVID, so we couldn't bring a full 1,000 people. There were only 500 people that were allowed to be in the hotel. Everyone had to sit 5 feet, 6 feet away from each other. We had on this stage, we're going to have Secretary Cardona later. Secretary Cardona was on this stage, sitting on that side, being interviewed by Margaret Brennan from CBS News, sitting where I am. They had plastic dividers. People were wearing NSLA masks. We gave you red, yellow, and green bracelets to say whether you're willing to shake hands, only do a fist bump, or just wave to me. This is not far in the past. And when you go through that, you don't take things for granted. You don't take it for granted that we could all get here together, that we could shake hands, see each other in the eye, and introduce ourselves. And so it means a lot that you're here. It means a lot that you're here representing your organizations, your communities, and the kids you serve. Now, tonight, we're going to be joined by Tony Award-winning Broadway star, Grammy Award-winning musician and singer Leslie Odom Jr. It's going to be amazing. And if you're familiar with Leslie Odom, and if he was familiar with this room, talking about summer learning, I think he would say, this is the room where it happens. If you care about summer learning, we are in the room where it happens. And let me just go through who's in this room. We have school leaders. You know who you are, from public schools, parochial schools, charter schools, independent schools. We have school district leaders. We have state departments of education. We have people from the U.S. Department of Education. We have all what we refer to as youth-serving government agencies from the federal level, at the state level, at the local level, all our library friends that are here, public housing authorities that are here, Parks and Rec, mayor's offices that are responsible for summer youth employment. It's one of the reasons we have the U.S. Department of Agriculture coming in full force today, right? People in government who care about this work, who care about kids, they're going to be here. We have every kind of nonprofit organization you can dream of is in this room. We have from Boys and Girls Club and YMCA and the biggest groups you've ever heard of, to more grassroots local groups, to the what we call intermediary groups, to the research groups, to the associations like our friends at the American Camp Association, to it just goes on and on to, there's so many folks that are here. Our award-winning programs, you saw on the second floor, we highlighted them so you could see. If you haven't won that award, please apply. We'll talk about that. We have also our funding partners, our foundations, our corporations, our media partners, for-profit companies that are here. So there's a lot of great people who are in this room. So then the question, if you know the author Simon Sinek, he has a famous book called Start with the Why. So let's just ask the question. So we know who's here. Why are we here? And I know from visiting all of you and going to your conferences and our team, not just me, Broderick, traveling the country, visiting your programs, I know that you all have different whys. A lot of you. And some of the whys, it follows Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So there are people in this room who care about summer programs because they know kids who get free and reduced lunch during the school year. If you're not in a program, you don't know where your next meal's coming from in the summer. So it's a hunger issue. I saw this. I visited an amazing program in the room, Camp Current, one of the oldest, maybe the oldest day camp, 130-year-old program in Hartford, Connecticut. They do everything you can imagine, but on the last day of every week, every camper, all 750, go home with a full bag of groceries for the weekend, and they give them groceries and food that the kids can make themselves in case there are no adults to make it for them. You can give them a round of applause. But all of you are doing this, but this is very important. We know some of you come to this work and come to this room because summer is a safety issue. Juvenile crime spikes. I just was with 2 Boston police officers who work with teens who have started summer programs to help kids stay out of trouble. There's so many reasons when it comes to safety. This summer, our organization runs a National Youth Leadership Institute. We bring 50 organizations, 1 student, high school leader, and a staff person from all over the country. We go for a week to American University. Our whole staff, I slept in dorms, me and Broderick were roommates. We were in the cafeteria. We were with the kids. They go monument tour, leadership stuff. Google comes in and mentors them. They do a million amazing things. They go up to Capitol Hill. They met Secretary Cardona. And I asked this one boy from LA, Tika, I was like, hey, you did all these things this week. Like, what was your favorite thing? He's like, I can't get over how safe it is here. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, no one is trying to hurt you here. You don't have to watch your back. So safety is the reason we all do this work. And then as you move up Maslow's pyramid, you get to, self-esteem and skill building. And some of you are trying, and our library friends, and so many of you are teaching kids how to read and working on math. And we have Math Core, and we have Math Hoops, and Math and Movement. And they're all right. And we have arts programs like Arts for Learning, and we have Engaging Creative Minds. And we have people who care about sports and mental health, like the Lions for Camp Health and DC Scores, and people using soccer to teach poetry. And, we got a lot of people trying to create a lot of skills for kids to increase their abilities and their self-esteem. And then as you get closer up that pyramid to self-actualization, we have a lot of you who are here to help kids realize their dreams and are focused on helping them find pathways to college and helping them find ways to careers. We have the School of the New York Times program here, which is teaching kids how to be future journalists. Here, we have Merit Health Scholars, which teaches kids how to, become doctors. And then we have all these college programs, Change Summer, Discover Summer, that bring kids to college campuses for the first time, help them take their abilities to the next level. So it's very exciting why everybody's here. I once had the opportunity to meet the commissioner in the NFL, Paul Tagliabue. And he's no longer the commissioner, but he was for a long time. And I asked him in a conversation with him, I'm like, you have these 30 billionaire team owners, and you had to all tie yourselves in a room and figure out how to make a decision, and none of these people are used to listening to anyone tell them what to do and tell them they're wrong. I was like, how did you wrangle all these people? And he goes, I didn't tell them they were wrong. I didn't tell them I disagree with them. I said, we share the same end goals, but we have different ideas of how to get there. And that's something I want you all to know, that however, we are all here to help kids and make sure that their lives are improved and that they're empowered. How we get there, we have different ways of getting there, but that's all great under this big tent. So, but I was recently with a guy who runs a super high-end, kind of expensive, you call it like a fancy summer program, nice guy. But he met me, and he was like, I work with super wealthy kids, why are you here? He said to me. And I was like, well, first, I was invited. Second, and this is true, I believe this, I go, I believe the summertime is the most innovative time in education, the most entrepreneurial time. I think it's I sometimes call it the R&D, the research and development time for education. And here's what I've learned in this job, that innovation comes from necessity, but necessity can come from two places. It can come from scarcity. You have $5, you got 100 kids, you got 2 toothpicks, two baseball cards, we're gonna build a tower, like whatever we're gonna do. But innovation necessity can also come from abundance. And you might have all these resources and all these parents and all these people spending a lot of money, and they need something new to do next summer that's different than last summer. And the competitive program is also doing something, and you got to come up with something creative. Now, our job at NSLA is to learn who is doing the most creative work to help kids all across America, and we will go and learn where those ideas are, and we want to make sure that we can learn from each other. And so my third thing I said to him, I go, listen, there's a national conversation happening across this country about how to help all kids in the summer, and I'm here to invite you to be part of it. And I'm proud to say some of his peers are here, and that's what we are having here. This is a real conversation. So people ask, why are we here? We talked about who's here. Now I just want to say a little bit about the moment we're in. And just want to urge you to kind of keep a few things in mind. One, we've said this before, summer learning programs is a nonpartisan issue. Feeding kids, keeping them safe, helping them learn, helping them feel seen, heard, welcomed, included. We have people from almost every single state in this country, red state, blue state, purple state. Everybody, everywhere we go, is investing in your work, cares about this issue, cares about these kids. I would also remind ourselves that in times when our federal government changes its priorities, especially maybe pulls back some of their investment and focus on kids, then that is when more responsibility, not less, falls on our local leaders, our local school districts, our local communities, our local nonprofits, our local philanthropic partners. So if this is changes that are coming, there's going to be much more for us to do because the needs of kids are not going away, and so neither are we. And then the last thing that I want to urge all of us to do is to keep broadening this tent and to keep reaching out to people different than us and to bring them into our conversation and into our work. And all of you are really good at that. And so I'll just share, it's sometimes funny, people say to me like, you're like the summer guy, like, you just love everything about the summer. And I'm like, well, I don't have an affinity for June, July, or August like more than anybody else, but what I really am is a kids guy. And I care about kids, and it turns out that is when a lot of kids are not having their needs met, and that's why I'm so passionate about that area. But it's just kind of funny. But when people sometimes say, well, if you're the CEO, of NSLA, well, what's the special sauce? And I always say, nothing to do with me being CEO, it's what we call the EOC. And I just want to remind you that if you're wondering, we said, we know who's here, we know why we're here, but if you're wondering where we go from here, I would encourage all of us to focus on our superpowers. And this is what the EOC is. The E stands for promoting educational equity. Okay, we've talked about it. We said there are a lot of gaps. The Gallup polling company, just came out with a big survey this past summer. They showed that 55% of kids in the United States were in organized summer programs. 45% still were not. But that's about 30 million out of 54 million K through 12 students. But in that 30 million, 67% or 68% were high income and 37% were low income. That 37% is about 10 million out of the 25 million kids on the free lunch program. So, but instead of being sad about that, one, that's a big increase from past survey data of how many kids were involved. But here's what I know. We have the opportunity now to close this gap between low income and high income. If we added 7 million more low income students into our programs, we could close the gap between how many low income kids are in programs versus our higher income peers. And you might say, 7 million, that's a lot. That's a lot for any one of us. But collectively, we could do it, and I'll tell you how. We had on our website for parents and caregivers to find programs, 60,000 programs listed on our website. And then we know there's more. If just those 60,000 programs added 116 more kids each, we would add 7 million more kids. So there's a lot. People talk about equity. people, Trevor Noah has a line, they say, people always say, if you feed a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach a man to fish, you'll feed him for a lifetime. Then he jokes, and I agree, is like, but they always leave out the part where you have to give the person a fishing rod to get them started. This is what we're in a position to do. When I think about equity in the summer, one of the most glaring examples of where it's missing is around the topic of summer internships. I used to have this experience where prior to NSLA, I worked as the national president of a group called After School All-Stars, and we had a middle school leadership group, and we bring them to DC, and we would take them up to Capitol Hill, and we would get them excited, and they'd go meet these young Hill staffers, and the kids would say, how do you get a job to work for your senator? And they say, well, you gotta be an intern. And the kids would say, great, how do they pay you to be an intern? And they're like, they don't pay you. And it was like a scratch in the record. It was like, and it was like horrible. I mean, we could laugh about it, but like I would be on the bus ride home. I'm like, I'm not bringing my kids back up there. That was so demoralizing. And I always said, if I'm ever in a position again, I'm going to find a way to create a fully scholarship summer internship program on Capitol Hill. And we do that at NSLA. And we encourage any of you who have college-age alumni to come and apply and be part of this great program. But I want to challenge each of you, all of you, find a way in your budget. If you can't make the final decision, ask someone to do it. Each of you is amazing. Each of you should have 2 or 3 high school students or college students working for you this summer that you pay, that can learn from you. If you could see it, you could be it. If we just did that, that would be 3,000 more kids this summer who have amazing experiences. I just really want to encourage you to do that. That's one step we could all take. We could grow in the kids in the program. The second superpower that I was talking about is about opportunity. You are all creators of opportunity, messengers of opportunity. And you know the line Angela Duckworth says, a lot of people say it, they say talent is evenly distributed, opportunity is not. But our special power is we create opportunity. And you do it in all these different ways. Malcolm Gladwell, who wrote the famous book, The Tipping Point, actually came out 25 years ago. It just came out with like a new version of it. But he tells a story of a guy, I think we all know, hopefully, Paul Revere. And Paul Revere is famous because he had a lot of the powers and skill sets you have, which is he knew what was going on in the community, he knew how to bring people together. There was another guy named William Dawes that he talks about, who was at the same time asked to go on a horse, and when the British were coming, he was sent in the opposite direction to go knock on everyone's door and get them all ready to come fight the British. None of us have heard of William Dawes. Because the next morning, all the people from the towns Paul Revere went to showed up, and none of the people from the towns that William Dawes went to showed up. So why is that? It's because of who Paul Revere was as a person. He was the first ever health inspector in Boston. He was the head of the Blacksmith Association. When they had a first ever jury trial, he was the foreman. He knew everybody. He didn't just go to every house. He knew whose door to knock on. And he was able to get them all together and mobilized. And that's what it takes to create opportunity. Now, there's a modern day Paul Revere, all of you are, but there's one guy still in Boston who reminds me of Paul Revere in his own way. And he's a friend of mine. And his name is Chris Smith. He runs Boston After School and Beyond. And instead of running around Boston saying, the British are coming, he literally runs around Boston saying, summer is coming. Summer is coming. I was just at an event. He had an event a month ago with the lieutenant governor of Massachusetts, the head of the Boston Public School superintendent, and 200 nonprofits, all talking about what they did over the summer, sharing data, sharing the data system, doing training, sharing best practices, and he has a weekly call with these folks every week. And he has the majority of kids in Boston Public Schools are in a structured, high-quality summer program. Now, that's amazing for them, but that is not unique to them. Now, the question is, which one of you is going to call the meeting in January and bring all the stakeholders together? And if you're not calling the meeting, make sure the meeting's happening and please attend. But if it's not happening, we need you to step up. And I just challenge you to be that person. I don't know who's going to call the meeting, but please do it. If you need help, NSLA will help you. If you need some money, we don't have a lot of money. I'll even give you some money to do it. But we need people to create opportunity by pulling all the partners together. And the last amazing resource you all have, and this is our special sauce, is the ability to build community. We're doing it here right now. But we give out all these national awards, and I always say, if you go visit all of them and you ask them, one can be on hip hop dance, and one can be on debate, and one could be on cooking, and you say, why do all the kids come back, and why do all the staff love working here, and why do you get great data? They say it's because we build community here. Every kid feels seen, heard, welcomed, and included. And we have the kids know the people love them, the staff know people love them, the board's involved, everybody knows. This is what it takes. And you can have a big budget or small budget, but if you build that community, we're going to get the outcomes and the attendance we want. You know, and I'll say this about our friends in Gallup. In their survey, they talk about that 28% of kids in the summer were in programs in school districts, and that's great. 72% of kids in America were in summer programs taking place outside of school buildings, which means we need the whole community. If we're going to reach all the kids, we need the funding to spread around. We need our schools to have money that they need, but we need our nonprofits, we need these government agencies, and we need to be aligned. We don't always need to be school building based, but it's really important that we be school aligned, and it's really important that we share the resources together to make sure everybody gets what they need. Now, I just want to share, there is a thing that we're going to coming up that we're going to need everyone in the community to work on, this community. You're going to hear from Senator Chris Murphy tomorrow from Connecticut. He has just introduced, in response to the expiring American Rescue Plan funding that a lot of us got, a new bill called the Summer for All bill. And it's going to take some time to pass a new funding bill. He's proposing $1 billion a year for 4 years in a row just for summer programs. It would be for nonprofits, government agencies, state education, states to receive this funding, and to support schools and low-income kids. Now, people say when you want to pass a bill, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And I was like, I hear that cliche, so I was like, oh, okay, well, what does that even mean? Well, first of all, I'll say this, just so people know. Chris Murphy was just reelected the other day, so he has a new 6-year term. So we have some time with Chris Murphy, so I'll hold on to that one. But I will also share, so this idea, like, we just came through a sprint coming out of COVID. That was a sprint. Kids had high needs, there was a lot of money, it had to be spent. We were all working feverishly, we worked as hard as we could. Now, if we're going to kind of come together and pass legislation, this is hard, and you've got to find Republican co-sponsors, we got to do all these things, we need all of you to be involved. So to figure out about whether it's a marathon or not, I actually signed up and I did the DC Marine Corps Marathon 2 weeks ago. Now, I'm not saying it to impress you, trust me. I did not win, I did not come in last, I didn't get hurt, so those were my goals. But I will tell you this, I know other people are in way better shape than me, but this is kind of a little funny thing, which is it's the second time I ran it, because last year I signed up and I trained and I told my wife I was going to quit after 13 miles. And if you ever run the DC Marine Corps Marathon, they know I was not the first person ever to think that they might quit after 13 miles. Because during the 13th mile, the way they do it is they have a poster every 2 inches showing a Marine, unfortunately, who passed away, killed in action, fighting for America. And it goes back to World War II, and it shows their picture, and it shows their age and the day they died. And by the end of the mile, they have 200 people with American flags standing waiting for you like a bridge that you run under. And if you thought you were going to quit, you were not going to quit. So my wife calls me, all right, it's 13 miles. You want me to come get you? I'm like, nope, give me another 2 hours. So then I finish this marathon. This is last year. And then I get home, and she's like proud somewhat, and mostly people are like shocked. And I'm getting all these kind of like backhanded compliment insults. They're like, you ran a marathon? I'm like, yeah. They're like, that means I can run a marathon. I mean, anyone can run a marathon. So you know what that forced me to do? It made me have to run it again. I'm like, maybe this was a fluke. Maybe it didn't even happen. Maybe I imagined the whole thing. So this time I trained, I ran it. And people now are like, how do you run a marathon? And people know better than me. But this is what I would tell you. I would tell you it's a choice. And it takes will. I'm not the most athletic guy. There are people with much better shape than me. But I made a decision. I'm going to do it. And if we want to pass this legislation, that's a choice. If we want summer learning to really be what the name of that bill is, Summer for All, that's a choice. If we have that will. And so the next time someone asks you, why are you here? Why are we here? You could say, because I believe it's possible to add 7 million more kids into summer programs and to close the gap between low-income and high-income kids who get to be in summer programs. That's why we are here. And if they ask you, you could say, and I believe that it's possible to pass a new piece of federal legislation that will make $1 billion available so we could have long and lasting support for all these summer programs and for all these kids who need them. And that's why we are here. And then you could tell them, I believe America has a huge laundry list and to-do list of things and problems it needs to solve, but making sure that every kid in the United States has a high-quality summer program is one thing we can cross off America's to-do list. And that's why we are here. And if we do that together, then we can ensure not just a summer for all, but a summer where every kid in America is seen, heard, welcomed, and included. Thank you for your great work. We're going to do it together.